How long has he been sleeping? So he'll be up pretty soon.
All right, and announcing our second place team in the beginner division, Dickinson 2. Dickinson 2. There should be 4 of you, right? Are we missing Tucker still? Can we give them a great big hand? Good question. And announcing the winner of the beginner division, Bismarck. All right, third place on the all tournament team with 21.7 points per game, Lilia Chappie. And second place on the all tournament team with 93.3 points per game, Marianne Henriquez. And the highest scoring individual of this tournament with 122.5 points per game, Asher McGelkey. Let's give them all a great big hand. They did a great job tonight. Junior division. The second place team of the junior division, Bismarck 1. get beat twice in the winner's bracket, so good job. And the first place team of the junior division, Fargo! Team of the Three Handsome Men. It was the boys against the girls on those last quizzes. All right, fourth place on the all-tournament team of the junior division is Isabella McGelkey with 37.576 points per game. Third place with 45.12 points per game, Kinsley Chuppy. Second place with 75.32 points per game, Bruno Henriquez. And the highest scoring individual of this tournament with 92.24 points per game, Charles Sletton. All right, let's give them all a great big hand. Good quizzes, guys.
Okay. What? I don't know. I can do sure.
We can have Dickinson 3 on the red and Dickinson 1 on the yellow.
You're up?
I'm gonna go see if they're.
Oh, you got the baby.
Ask your coaches.
Dad.
What? Sister Caitlin, what?
Lainey.
Yeah. Are we on the yellow? Ben.
My dog is pissed.
Should be okay, just make sure you fix it. What are you doing? Are you gonna help him? Okay. Do you need something to write on?
Shayla. bud.
Woody, right here. Woody.
Oh, where are all the judges go? Kayla's getting a lot of
Buzzer check.
Yellow, 1.
Okay. Quiz number 1 is open. Question number 1 is a 10-point question. John instructed to repent. Why?
Red, 2.
For the remission of sins.
That is incorrect. Question number 2 is a 10-point question. Verse 40 of Luke chapter 1 mentions whose house?
Red, 1.
The house of Zacharias.
That is correct. Question number 3 is a quotation completion question with 10 points. One of the two.
Yellow, 1.
Interruption.
One of the two which heard John speak and followed him was Andrew, Simon Peter's brother.
That is correct. Question number 4 is a 10-point question. What type of honey is described in Matthew chapter 3?
Tie.
Question number 5 is a 10-point question. Zacharias tarried so long where?
Yellow, 1.
In the temple.
That is correct. Question number 6 is a 2-part question worth 10 points. What was weeping for whom as recorded in Matthew chapter 2 verse 18?
Tie.
Question number 7 is a 10-point question. What is said in the law of the Lord as recorded in verse 24 of Luke chapter 2?
Red, 1.
that every male that openeth up the womb shall be holy unto the Lord.
That is incorrect.
Tie.
Question number 8 is a two-part question worth 10 points. Question: what comprehended not what, as recorded in John chapter 1, verse 5?
Red, 1.
The darkness comprehend the light.
Tie.
That is correct. And as a reminder, avoid looking at your teammates while they are answering or doing anything that can be interpreted as communicating. Question number 9 is a 20-point question. John made what comparison concerning a dove in John chapter 1, verse 32?
Yellow, 1.
A pair of turtle doves or 2 pigeons.
That is incorrect. Question number 10 is a 3-part question worth 20 points. Question: who went up straightway out of what? When?
Tie.
Question number 11 is a cross-reference 2-part question worth 20 points. Question: verse 31 of John chapter 1 begins with what 5 words phrase that also begins which other verse of the same chapter?
Tie.
Question number 12 is a quotation completion question worth 20 points. Question: art thou greater?
Yellow, 1.
Interruption.
Art thou greater than our father Jacob, which gave us the well, and drank thereof himself, and his children and his cattle?
That is correct. Question number 13 is a quotation question worth 20 points. Question: a sword is mentioned in a seal.
Yellow, 1.
Interruption.
Verse of study with this verse. Yea, a sword shall pierce through thy own soul also, the thoughts of the universe may be revealed.
Tie.
That is incorrect. This question was interrupted and we reread to the red team without interruption. Quotation question. A sword is mentioned in a single verse. Quote this verse.
Red 2,
Yea, a sword shall pierce through thine own soul, that the thoughts of many hearts may be revealed.
That is incorrect. Question number 14 is a 20-point question. The first verse that names Nicodemus describes him how?
yellow 1,
There was a man of the Pharisees named Nicodemus, a ruler of the Jews.
That is correct. Question number 15 is a two-part question worth 20 points. The devil, according to Matthew chapter 4, verse 8, took Jesus where and showed him what?
yellow 1,
Into an exceeding high mountain, and showeth him all the kingdoms of the world, and glory of them. The devil took him up to an exceeding high mountain, and showeth him all the kingdoms of the world, and glory of them.
Time.
That is correct. Time out, Red. No. 60 seconds.
Time.
Time has been called. Question number 16 is a two-part question worth 20 points. Being raised from sleep, who did what, as recorded in Matthew chapter 1?
yellow 1,
Joseph, being raised from sleep, did as the angel of the Lord had bidden him, and took unto his wife.
That is correct. Question number 17 is a three-part question worth 20 points. When was who so named of whom, according to Luke chapter 2, verse 21?
Time.
Question number 18 is a four-part question worth 30 points. Referring to Jesus, verses 3, 4, and 5 of John chapter 4 record, he left where, departed again where, must needs go through where, then cometh he to where.
yellow 1,
He left Judea and came to Galilee, and he must needs go through Samaria, then cometh he to see Samaria called Sychar, near to the parcel of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph.
That is correct. Question number 19 is a cross-reference quotation question worth 30 points. Two verses of John chapter 1 contain the same three-word question. Quote these verses.
Time.
Question number 20 is a cross-reference two-part question worth 30 points question. Concerning Moses in our verses of John, what contrast is recorded in chapter 1 and what comparison is recorded in chapter 3?
Time.
This quiz is closed. You may relax.
No, I didn't say that. Yeah, you said that.
That's closed.
Yeah, I know. What did I say wrong?
Oh, which one?
The one that mentions the word.
So we're having a hard time hearing like your individual words, and we didn't hear that the thoughts of many hearts. We just heard the many hearts, or the thoughts of many hearts. Got to talk a little louder, a little clearer. That's right. When he did his, I can hear that also all, and hear the also.
The results of the last quiz were as follows. Dalton Talis was the highest scoring individual with 110 points. We can have Dickinson 1 on the red and Dickinson 2 on the yellow.
They were done. So I thought they were done. No, it's going to be a little bit. Yeah. During my house, in my room, I was really. Come on, Dad. Dad, go on, we're going. I think she warned me before I went to bed. Yeah. There's something else. You know, I'm the outside.
Yellow, 1.
I was behaving right.
Red 1, 2,
They said they're going to go
yellow 2,
out.
yellow 3.
And I said, okay, that's fine.
I said better.
But then I found out
Yellow,
they told me to go to Ethan's house. I went to Ethan's house. And all they wanted to do was, do
This
the
quiz is
horizontal dance and play. Well, why did they send me out? That's what I don't understand.
Question number 1 is a 10-point question. Who hath God scattered as recorded in Luke chapter 1, verse 51?
red, 1.
The proud and the imagination of their hearts.
That is correct. Question number 2 is a 10-point question. How shall ye find the babe as recorded in Luke chapter 2, verse 12?
Yellow, 3.
Wrapped in swaddling clothes and lying in a manger.
That is correct. Question number 3 is a 10-point question. According to verse 3 of Matthew chapter 2, who was troubled?
Red, 1.
Herod the king and all Jerusalem with him.
That is correct. Question number 4 is a 10-point question. To Nathanael, Jesus said, I saw thee when?
Time.
Question number 5 is a 2-part question worth 10 points. What was the light of whom, as recorded in verse 4 of
Yellow, 2.
Interruption.
John chapter 1. He was up. In him was the light of men, according to John. Reference to John.
Time.
That is incorrect. This question was interrupted and be reread to the red team without interruption. 2-part question. What was the light of whom, as recorded in verse 4 of John chapter 1?
Red, 2.
The light was the light of men.
That is correct. Question number 6 is a 2-part question with 10 points. The word was with whom and was whom as found in John chapter 1, verse 1.
Yellow, 3.
And the word was with God, and the word was God.
That is correct. Question number 7 is a 10-point question. Who hath set his seal that God is true?
Time.
Question number 8 is a quotation question with 10 points. Quote what Jesus instructed concerning the governor of the feast.
Time.
Question number 9 is a cross-reference 2-part question with 20 points. As recorded in our verses of John chapter 3, in which verse is Jesus addressed as rabbi, and in which verse is John addressed as rabbi?
Time.
Question number 10 is a 3-part question worth 20 points. What shineth where, with what result, as recorded in John?
Red, 1.
Interruption.
Chapter 1, verse 5. And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not.
That is correct.
Hello?
Okay. Time in. Question number 11 is a 4-part question with 20 points. What was given by whom, but what came by whom, as recorded in John chapter 1, verse 17?
Yellow, 1.
The law was given by Moses, but grace and truth came by Jesus Christ.
That is correct. Question number 12 is a quotation question worth 20 points. Question: Marvel not that I said unto thee, ye must be born again. Quote the verse following this one.
Red, 1.
The wind bloweth where it listeth, and thou hearest the sound thereof, but canst not tell whence it cometh and whither it goeth. So is everyone that is born of the Spirit.
That is correct. Question number 13 is a 20-point question. Referring to the child Jesus, according to the verse preceding the one that records Simeon took him up in his arms when?
Red, 1.
And he came by the Spirit into the temple when the parents brought the child Jesus to do for him after the custom of the law.
That is correct. Question number 14 is a 20-point question. Simeon said this child is set for what in verse 34 of Luke chapter 2?
Yellow, 1.
The fall and rising again of many in Israel, and for a sign which shall be spoken against.
That is correct. Timeout yellow, 60 seconds.
Tie.
Time in. Question number 15 is a two-part question worth 20 points. Question: By what hath what visited us, as recorded in Luke chapter 1, verse 78?
Red, 1.
Through the tender mercy of our God, whereby the day spring from on high hath visited us.
That is correct. Question number 16 is a quotation question worth 20 points. Question: To give knowledge of salvation unto his people by the remission of their sins. Quote the verse preceding this.
Red, 1.
Interruption.
This one. Through the tender mercy of our God, whereby the day spring from on high hath visited us.
That is incorrect. This question was interrupted and be reread to the yellow team without interruption. Quotation question: To give knowledge of salvation unto his people by the remission of their sins. Quote the verse preceding this one.
Yellow, 1.
And that child shall be called the prophet of the highest. Shall go before the face of the Lord to prepare his ways.
Tie.
That is incorrect. Question number 17 is a two-part question worth 20 points. Question: In the verse of Matthew that twice names Abraham, what is recorded concerning Abraham, and what is this verse?
Yellow, 1.
And think not to say within yourselves, we have Abraham to our father, for I say unto you that God is able of these stones to raise up children unto Abraham. Matthew 3:9.
That is correct. Question number 18 is a 30-point question. The angel instructed in verses 13, 14, and 15 of Luke chapter 1 to fear not, and why?
Yellow, 1.
Fear not, Zacharias, for the prayer is heard, and the wife Elizabeth shall bear thee a son, and thou shalt call his name John. And thou shalt have joy and gladness, and many shall rejoice at his birth, for he shall be great in the sight of the Lord, and shall drink from the wine.
That is incorrect. Question number 19 is a cross-reference 4-part question worth 30 points question. As recorded in John chapter 1, in which verse did Andrew say, "We have found him," and in which verse did Philip say, "We have found him"?
Red, 1.
John 1:41. John 1:46.
Tie.
That is incorrect. Question number 20 is a quotation question worth 30 points question. And I saw and bear record that this is the Son of God. Quote the verse preceding this one.
Red, 1.
And I knew him not, but that he sent me to baptize with water. The same said unto me, Upon whom thou shalt see the Spirit descend and remain on him. The same is he which baptizeth with the Holy Ghost.
Tie.
That is correct. This quiz is closed and you relax. The results of the last quiz were as follows. Cooper Simons was the second highest scoring individual with 35 points. Dalton Metalis is the highest scoring individual with 105 points. We can have Dickinson 3 on the red and Dickinson 2 on the yellow. Quiz number 3 is open. Question number 1 is a 10-point question. Who is described as devout in Luke chapter 2?
Time.
Question number 2 is a 2-part question with 10 points. In the presence of who stood as recorded in Luke chapter 1, verse 19?
Red, 1.
Gabriel stood in the presence of God.
That is correct. Question number 3 is a 10-point question. What shall overshadow Mary as recorded in verse 35 of Luke?
Red, 1.
Interruption.
Chapter 1. The power of the highest shall overshadow thee.
That is correct. Question number 4 is a 10-point question. What 3 gifts are mentioned in verse 11 of Matthew chapter 2?
Red, 1.
Gold, frankincense, and myrrh.
That is correct. Question number 5 is a 10-point question. From their seats, God hath put down whom?
Yellow, 1.
The proud.
That is incorrect. Question number 6 is a 2-part question with 10 points. According to the words of the angel to Zacharias, thou shalt have what, and shall do what?
Red, 1.
And thou shalt have joy and gladness, and many shall rejoice at his birth.
That is correct. Question number 7 is a 10-point question. What was God as recorded in verse 1 of John chapter 1?
Yellow, 3.
The Word.
That is correct. Question number 8 is a quotation completion question worth 10 points. And whence is this?
Yellow, 1.
Interruption.
And whence is this to me, that the mother of my Lord should come to me?
That is correct. Question number 9 is a 20-point question. For what, according to verse 20 of Luke chapter 2, did the shepherds glorify and praise God?
Yellow, 1.
For all the things that they had heard and seen, as it was told unto them?
That is correct. Question number 10 is a 2-part question with 20 points. John chapter 1 verse 38 records Jesus did what and 2 disciples did what?
Time.
Question number 11 is a 3-part question with 20 points. In which verse did Mary ask what question unto whom?
Red, 1.
Luke 1:34. Mary asked a question unto Gabriel. The angel Gabriel. How shall this be, sir? I know not.
Time.
That is incorrect. Question number 12 is a 4-part question with 20 points. The angel instructed Joseph to take whom Flee where and be there how long? Why?
Yellow 2.
Tie.
Question number 13. That was incorrect.
Time out.
Time out, yellow. 60 seconds.
Tie.
Time has been called. Question number 13 is a cross-reference three-part question worth 20 points question. As recorded in Luke chapter 1, verse 66 mentions the hand of whom, verse 71 mentions the hand of whom, and verse 74 mentions the hand of whom.
Yellow 1.
The hand of the Lord. The hand of all that hate us. The hand of our enemies.
Tie.
That is incorrect. Question number 14 is a 20-point question. What did John say concerning a fan in Luke chapter 3, verse 17?
Yellow 1.
The fan is in his hand, and he will thoroughly purge his floor, and will gather the wheat into his canner, but the chaff he will burn with fire unquenchable.
Tie.
That is correct. Question number 15 is a quotation question worth 20 points. Question. A verse of Luke chapter 1 names 5 people. Quote this verse.
Red, 1.
There was in the days of Herod, the king of Judea, a certain priest named Zacharias of the course of Abia, and his wife was of the daughters of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth.
That is correct. Question number 16 is a 2-part question worth 20 points. Question. Jesus, according to John chapter 2, verse 15, did how many things, and what are they?
Tie.
Question number 17 is a quotation completion question worth 20 points. Question. Jesus saw Nathanael coming.
Tie.
Question number 18 is a cross-reference 2-part question worth 30 points. Question. In John chapter 1, verse 15 records John bare witness and cried, saying what? And 32 records John bare record, saying what?
Tie.
Question number 19 is a cross-reference quotation question worth 30 points. Question. Quote the 3 questions asked in John chapter 2.
Tie.
Timeout red, 60 seconds.
You have 30 seconds, but yeah, yeah. But they're really spend time memorizing that kind of stuff. Yeah, and all the verses. Yeah. Can you imagine? I know that's my favorite. That's a very good question. I vote we give it 50 points.
Last question.
Tie.
Time has been called. Question number 20 is a 2-part question worth 30 points. Question. As recorded in verses 9 and 10 of John chapter 4, the women of Samaria said what, and Jesus said what?
Tie.
This quiz is closed. You may relax. The results of the quiz were as follows. Cooper Simons was the second highest scoring individual with 35 points. Tyler Stolorf was the highest scoring individual with 50 points.
You missed a question. In which verse did Mary ask what question? You can say the question. How shall
With the timing off, huh?
yeah, and we have the same time, like you can tie, then you can count it on the Nope.
can have Dickinson 1 on the red and Dickinson 3 on the yellow.
Well, whichever one you have. And if there wasn't, we just have pairs, then they had to.
Actually, can happen in the background. But that was probably one severe one.
Oh, really?
That's what I heard. Remember Jamestown Church had that little box in that downstairs.
Let's check.
Red, 1.
Kyla, you ready for it? Quiz 4 is open. Question number 1 is a 10-point question. Rachel would not be comforted. Why?
Red, 1.
Rachel weeping for her children and will not be comforted because they are not.
Tie.
That is correct. Question number 2 is a 10-point question. What type of table is mentioned in Luke chapter 1, verse 63?
Yellow, 2.
Writing 2.
That is correct. Question number 3 is a 10-point question. John chapter 3, verse 19 describes what as evil?
Red, 1.
Their deeds were evil.
That is correct. Question number 4 is a 10-point question. Who is described as Simon Peter's brother?
Tie.
Question number 5 is a 2-part question worth 10 points. Who is of the tribe of whom, as recorded in Luke chapter 2, verse 36?
Tie.
Question number 6 is a 2-part question worth 10 points. The Pharisees had heard that who made and baptized more disciples than who?
Red, 2.
Jesus. John.
That is correct. Question number 7 is a quotation completion question worth 10 points. Lord, now lettest thou.
Tie.
Question number 8 is a 10-point question. Philip was of where, as recorded in John chapter 1, verse 44?
Tie.
Question number 9 is a 4-part question worth 20 points. According to John chapter 1, verses 19 and 20, who asked what and who confessed what?
Red, 1.
priests and Levites from Jerusalem to ask him, Who art thou? And he confessed and denied not, but confessed, I am not the Christ. He referring to John.
That is correct. Question number 10 is a 20-point question. Philip found Nathanael and saith unto him, What?
Red, 1.
We have found him of whom Moses in the law and the prophets did write, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph.
That is correct. Question number 11 is a quotation completion question worth 20 points question. The wind bloweth where?
Red, 1.
Interruption.
The wind bloweth where it listeth, and thou hearest the sound thereof, but canst not tell whence it cometh and whither it goeth. So is everyone that is born of the Spirit.
That is correct. Question number 12 is a 4-part question worth 20 points question. According to which verse of Luke chapter 2, the child waxed strong in what, filled with what, and what was?
Yellow, 1.
Interruption.
Showing unto where? The child grew and waxed strong in spirit, and was in the desert till the day of his baptism.
That is incorrect. This question was interrupted and will be reread to the red team without interruption. 4-part question. According to which verse of Luke chapter 2, the child waxed strong in what, filled with what, and what was upon him?
Red, 1.
Luke 2:40, and the child grew by strong spirit, filled with wisdom, and the grace of God was upon him.
That is correct. Question number 13 is a 2-part question worth 20 points question. Answering Nicodemus in verse 5 of John chapter 3, Jesus said, Except a man be what, he cannot do what?
Red, 1.
Except a man be born of water and of spirit, he cannot enter into the kingdom of God.
Time.
That is incorrect. Question number 14 is a quotation question worth 20 points question. Performance. Quote the verse of study that contains this word.
Time.
Question number 15 is a 2-part question worth 20 points question. According to Luke chapter 2, verse 27, Simeon did what, and the parents did what?
Red, 1.
And he came by the Spirit into the temple when the parents brought the child Jesus to do for him after the custom of the law.
That is correct. Question number 16 is a cross-reference 2-part question worth 20 points question. As recorded in John chapter 1, by the word, what was made in verse 3 and what was made in verse 10?
Yellow, 1.
All things were made by him. by him?
That is correct. Question number 17 is a 20-point question. Luke chapter 2 refers to offering a sacrifice how?
Tie.
Question number 18 is a cross-reference quotation question worth 30 points. One verse contains the word foot and another contains the word feet. Quote these verses.
Tie.
Question number 19 is a three-part question worth 30 points. Who, according to verses 1 and 2 of John chapter 3, came to Jesus when and said what?
Red, 1.
There was a man of the Pharisees named Nicodemus, a ruler of the Jews. The same came to Jesus by night, and saith unto him, Rabbi, we know that thou art a teacher come from God, for no man can do these miracles that thou doest, except God be with him.
That is correct. And Dalton is quizzed out. Question number 20 is a cross-reference three-part question worth 30 points. Which verse contains the phrase King of Judea? Which verse contains the phrase King of the Jews? And which verse contains the phrase King of Israel?
Tie.
This quiz is closing. You may relax. Our highest scoring individual from that quiz was Dalton Portalis with 150 points.
Trying to be bossy. But I mean, I am in the front trying, apparently.
As soon as I get colors,
They had more
and then I colored and then I
We're actually like